Welcome, it's Egwin here from Beyond Systems. Today we are in the next nugget, the next movement day in this movement month where I share one exercise every single day, something regarding mobility, flexibility, conscious movement, somatic education, really embodiment, things like that, where we talk about flexibility, sometimes strength. It's a great mix. So the levels are also mixed. We have some things for beginners, intermediate, and advanced people. And today, as you can see, we have a change of scenery. So today, our biggest friend is a solid wall. A closed door from the right side would also do the trick, but I prefer a wall with a little bit more space towards the left and towards the right. Now, if you want to stay up to date with this series and other things where I talk about the connection of movement, mind, body, all of those things, how consciousness is interwoven in the body, then please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and also check out the other videos that we've done in this series before. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into today's exercise. This one is a real fun one, at least I think so. You might have heard of mountain climbers, which is basically you are in sort of a plank position on the ground, and then you have those interesting moves with your legs. Now, obviously, I think you see where this leads. There is no wall involved when we do it on the ground. So what are we going to do? Yes, we're going to take the legs up on the wall, bring the arms down on the ground, and do this whole thing in a supported handstand position. Basically, the exercise looks like this. Hands go down on the ground. My legs go up on the wall. Make sure not to hang completely through, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. And from here, pull one knee towards your chest, and then in a floating way, change. One leg goes down towards your chest while the other floats up. A more reduced version of that would obviously be to be in this position, straighten the leg up and pull the other one down without it being a floating change. So where one leg is always in contact with the wall. Another matter for this, obviously, is the placement of the hands and also wrist and also the whole structure of the body. So let's talk about those things here for a second. First of all, obviously this exercise works a lot with strength in the shoulder girdle, but also with mobility in the truest sense of the word, meaning with how do I coordinate my muscles in the front of my body up here, my chest area, my back shoulder blade area, my core, and also the back, lower back area. How do I coordinate these muscles? Suddenly now, with my legs being up in the air, the free floating part, which normally are the hands, and the hands having the stable part on the ground. Truth of the matter being, there isn't tremendous amounts of upper body strength required to do this exercise. If you learn a little bit about the structure, about how to use your hands, how to position your hands properly, and so on, it's really not that big of a deal in terms of strength. However, it is a big deal in terms of our neurological system, and our mind is not used to this movement, which simply means that sometimes there might be shaking in the hands or things like that. You might feel unstable, but that's an instability that comes from basically the body not knowing how to organize itself. That being said, I would still say this is not a total beginner exercise, especially because you also need to know how to coordinate, how to stabilize your lumbar spine and your shoulders in a way so that you do not hurt yourself and harm yourself. We'll talk about that right now. As for the hands, let's start bottom up, in this case, hands. I always like to use a slightly active hand shape, where basically the ball of my hand is on the ground and my fingers are spread out towards the front. See, so if this is the ground here, then basically my palm is on the ground, but my fingers, they are active, and I work with a hollow hand, even under pressure, because this actually helps to transmit the forces between radius and ulnar in the forearm more efficiently and with less strain in the wrist. I'll talk about that posture in more detail at some point. Another thing that also you gain from this is you gain more pressure between your fingertips and your palm, which allows you for more balanced action when you are upside down, especially for handstands or things like that. As you can see in the floating version of this, there is always almost a handstand in between, but for the sake of this exercise, it's still a couple of degrees away from what would be a totally straight handstand. And let's just do it one more time. Then I talk about the shoulders. Why the shoulders? There are many different versions of how to organize the arms in the shoulders. And one of the things that people often point out is that when the palms are on the ground, the fingers should point towards the front, which is the same thing that I would suggest right now. And then it's a matter of where do I point my elbow. See, when I have my arm like this, I can have my elbow pointing out towards the side, or I can depress my scapula and roll the elbow down, or in the upside down case, roll the elbow so that it faces back towards my armpit rather than out towards the side. When you do this rolling and spiraling out motion, it will create more space for the head. Still, I wouldn't say that this should be a stiff and stagnant rule. Especially with the support of the wall, play with the possibilities of how your shoulder girdle can support you. So this would be part number 1 of this exercise. Basically, you're choosing a position with your hands that is not too close to the wall. So I choose a position rather far away from the wall out here, a little further even than the mat is right now. I'm going to bring my legs up. And see, the first thing that I do, it's not even necessary that they are straight. You can even use your knees at this point. And the only thing that I want to do is play a little bit, play with my shoulder blades, play with left-right wiggles. You can straighten your legs out also in an opened way with the hip as good as possible on top of your hands. And now play a little bit with the possibilities of rolling the elbow like this, which also means rolling the shoulder blade down away from the ears, or rolling it forward, just so you get this experience of the difference. Eventually, in hand balances, the more you can use different rotational angles, the better it is, because the more you use different kinds of angles, the more your body can also adapt in case you do lose balance at some point. So I would never say it's a fixed rule, the elbows have to be pointed back. There are many different versions of that. Biomechanically speaking, one could say this is more efficient than the other. However, I'm always someone who really suggests this exploration. Now, another issue that might turn up for some people here is obviously we are upside down, so a lot of blood is going to rush into your head. When you come down and you feel dizzy, don't immediately stand up. An option is to go into child's pose, open your legs out towards the side, and then bring the upper body all the way through between your thighs towards the front. And stay down there a little bit so that you can recover blood slowly from the head all the way back into your body over time. Over, say, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, a minute and a half, something like that. Let's jump back into this position and take a look at the next thing that's happening. What's the next thing that's happening? In this specific case, it's you have to find an alignment between your hands and your shoulders. For most people, a strong extension in the shoulders with the arm up and back in a straight way is difficult, especially when they're either very strong, very well trained, then many have limited range of motion, or when they haven't done a lot in a long time. The middle group is mostly fine. They are the mobile, more mobile, but less control ones. So what we're going to play with is this pushing the shoulder back and trying to sink the upper body through towards the front. Both of these elements can be necessary, and just in trying that out, it helps you to understand a little bit more about how your body works. Once we have that, we choose a position that is then also related to the lumbar spine and the hip. See, one thing that in this exercise we definitely try to avoid is having a massive arch in the lumbar spine. So you want your spine to be relatively straight, and you also want to be far enough away from the wall so that your legs can literally pull down and straighten back up again freely. So let's take a look at the shoulder play here for a moment. Hands go down on the ground, legs walk up the wall. See, there is two different options. One option is I move my shoulders over my hands forward, or I let my upper body sink all the way through the shoulders. The more I let my upper body sink through the shoulders, the more my whole chest area will open up, which for most people might be quite uncomfortable. And at the beginning, in this specific exercise this far away from the wall, where it's not about a straight line for a handstand, it's also the position that's more difficult when the third element, hands, shoulders, hips, the hips as third element come into play. Because we just said we do not want a lumbar arch. So basically, I'm looking for a position where my hands, they are allowed to stay in still a little bit of shoulder flexion rather than full extension, or flexion. And so what I'm looking for is a pose where my spine is actually the unit of measure. That's the important thing. I repeat that. My spine is the unit of measure for the posture that I take here. So let's jump into this one more time. The hands. Place the hands. Pinky finger side of the palms go down. The fingers fan out to all sides. Press down into the ground, roughly at shoulder width apart. Bring the legs up, either with a jump or walking up. See, this is what I try to avoid, this lumbar arch. So I'm going to go out into a position where I pull my pubic bone towards my rib cage, and where I feel that I have a firm press off my shoulders through my hands and fingers into the ground. This solidifies the front of my body. And now I can play with pulling one leg in, straightening it back up. Just play with this. Pull one in, straighten it up. Pull it in, straight. And then you can start to change this. Pull in, try to push it up and pull the other in and up. Whoop, 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 whoop. And the more we do this, the more it can become floating. So when you want it to become more floating, then see to it that rather than just pulling the knee down and finding a straight line back to the wall with the extending leg, see to it that you pull the knee in and extend the other leg rather straight up and wait till the body dips back to the wall. Then you get this nice element of a floating upside down mountain climber exercise that's interesting for the upper body and still also a quite interesting cardio exercise as well. It's not so strongly involved with the core as it is when you do it on the ground, but it's just doing exercises in different angles, in different versions. That's how you learn about the immense amount of possibilities you carry within your body. So let's try this one more time. Also, when you place the hands down on the ground and bring the legs up, at the beginning, just try to stay safe. Don't try to do everything at the same time. So, bring the hands down, jump up either sideways or straight. Make sure that your hands, your palms are parallel to the ground. And if you are still somewhat crooked here, it doesn't matter. First of all, make sure that you feel this push from the shoulders into the hands. Then try to find the alignment of the shoulders over the wrists that feels comfortable in your hands. Then try to elongate the lumbar spine, tuck your pubic bone a little bit towards your chest. Make sure that your elbows are solidified. Pull one knee in and then play. All right. So that's the exercise for today. Have a great time trying this out and let me know how it goes in the comments down below. It's definitely a fun one. That much I can tell you. And in the next couple of days and weeks, remaining time, we're going to play a little bit more with upside down poses using the wall. But this one is pretty much the most intense one, especially when it comes to the mix of having to push away and then also work with this cardio aspect in it. All right, have a beautiful time. Thanks for watching. See you around soon. Bye, guys.